Welcome to The Other Side of Yesterday, a podcast where we explore the stories of redemption, faith, and hope. Here, we dive into deep moments that define us, the questions that haunt us, and the God who transforms us. Everyone has a yesterday. Let's hear the other side.
So, accepting Christ in 99, I believe that moment of forgiveness, if I hadn't done that, I think I'd be on a very different path.
Yeah, so would you say that was the moment that the tangible chains started to fall off?
I think I would say that is when I noticed a tangible change. And I would say that the chains did start, I noticed them starting to come off. Yeah. I don't know if they started changing before that, but that moment I could say that was an actual difference from what I want and what Christ wants me to be.
Okay. Wow. So, you go through that.
Are you okay?
I was saying, I was going to have therapy on Wednesday.
Let me tell you about this podcast.
So you have this next section. You said, okay, that next day for me was 6 years. So we're like halfway through that, right?
Right.
So kind of take me towards the other side of that. Like, what was that next year's kind of like?
Okay, so whenever my father died, that was probably the next big change, right? Because when I got to that point, I really started to see how broken my father's side was. Now, this was about 2007, so I had already started, and I've been going to church this whole time, right? And so I started. That's when I really that time period is when I started delving into like demonology and how do you say it?
Just like the
study of spirit demons and.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would stay away from demonology as a term because that actually would be a secular version of study of demons.
Yeah.
I would say, like, if we're looking at theologically, like, hey, I'm just looking at the spiritual warfare side.
Spiritual warfare. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. Yeah, so that's when I'd started studying spiritual warfare and how the spirits affect us, how that kind of stuff plays out in how it affects the natural world, right? So once I saw where my father was living and I started learning about and studying that and looking at it, I was like, this family is broken. Like the devil did a good job breaking this family apart. Like he really did. Because, okay, spoilers. So my youngest uncle ate a shotgun.
Mm.
The next oldest up uncle, he married into a Mormon family, and that was just weird. I went to his funeral, and it was weird. It was very dry. It was just like, he was here. He was great. Yay. It was weird. It was just weird for a funeral. That coming from evangelical, so, maybe our bar was set high.
Yeah, you're charismatic.
Yeah, the charismatic is really bonkers at how this family has been picked apart and fallen apart and really been destroyed. And I don't ever remember my grandmother smiling, ever.
Wow.
Like, I only ever remember her smoking and saying, well, come on in. I'm like, okay.
So affection was like nowhere.
Not even there. Nah. It's nuts. And same thing with my grandpa Phil. I remember him as a kid, and he was always sitting in his chair smoking and on oxygen.
As one does.
As apparently a lot of people do. They're not, when everyone says don't do that. And he had the oxygen machine. He had the cans too. He didn't have the machine. Yeah.
That's so dangerous. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh. And so I started picking that apart, and I really started. That's when I would have to say that's when I really started discovering how Christ changes us and affects us in ways that we don't really pay attention to. And, it's easy to say 99% of people don't pay attention to where we start and where we end up.
Sure.
So that would probably be the next moment in life where I was like, there's a lot of change going on here, and I am not who I used to be. You know, and I can safely say that after I accepted Christ in the military, I wouldn't officially call myself a nihilist at that point, right?
Okay, sure.
Because Christ started, but I probably wouldn't call myself a Christian either.
Okay, why do you think that is?
I would say that because even though I had said that, gone through the sinner's prayer, I had not fully devoted myself to Christ at that point.
Okay.
It was more of a, oh, this seems like a cool belief system. Let's try this for a while. You know, because I would say that I was still dealing with a lot of frustration, a lot of trust issues from growing up, because I lived in that for 20 years, right?
Right.
I lived in those trust issues and the I don't want to get hurt by anybody mentality.
Right.
And so even though I had accepted Christ, I also was still living in the Christ is not going to hurt me. I don't care if he is God.
Right.
I don't want to get hurt again, and I can't put my trust in a book. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I know there's people out there that are going to have that mentality of saying, well, that's just a book. That's not Christ.
Right.
Because until you really study said book and understand that it's not just words in a page, you start understanding it is a living, breathing system. And it is God's divine word given to us. Once you start understanding that, then Christ can really start impacting your life.
So would this be a fair way of framing it, that when you were in the military and you accepted Christ, like he was your savior, you were saved, and he was working, but instead of you working in tandem with the Spirit, you're like, no, I'm still working against what the Spirit's trying to do inside. But he's there.
I say that's one way to put it. I would probably define it better as I will accept Christ, but I still want to be in control.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Kind of like working with your manager, but only through email.
Right.
It's like, you can tell me what to do, but we'll see if I follow it.
Right.
You know, if that makes sense?
No, that makes sense.
Okay.
So your values are changing, your view of life is changing. Did you start to see any hope in life, or did your dreams and passions start to change at all?
No. And I say that half jokingly, but because I was still dealing with that nihilistic mindset chipping away. You know, it wasn't completely gone at that point. So realistically, the Lord was working overtime trying to change me from the inside out, as he tends to do.
Right.
Because really what was happening is I was still trying to give up the control and the trust issues of, for lack of a better word, of my heart. I was still trying to give up control of it, right? I was still trying to put faith in Christ. And really up until, when did I rededicate myself? I think I rededicated myself somewhere around 2013. Up until 2013, it was a lot of, it developed into, I'm trying to put the X's in the Christian formula.
Okay, yeah.
I was trying to meet a checklist of Christianity.
Right.
And I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working.
Right. So now we're going to go from, if I can't change the life, I'll go from the outside in. Right. I'll change me by just doing these things.
Because I was trying to maintain control.
Right.
Because again, I was trying to be like, okay, I accept you, Christ, but on my terms.
Right. I'll be good on my terms.
Yeah. And as I was studying Scripture, I would say, that was weird. And as I was studying Scripture, I was saying, okay, if you're a Christian, this is what you do. You do A, B, C, and D. Mm-hmm. I'm doing A, B, C, and D. Why aren't I being blessed? Mm-hmm. Why am I still broke? Why am I still single? Why is nothing being the thing that it should be? You know? And so that was what I was working on for probably about a decade or so.
So just to kind of ask the question, do you feel like you felt that way because that is kind of what you were being taught. That as long as I put in X, God will definitely give me Y. Right? This is kind of like a transactional love. Or is that just a belief you were holding?
I would probably lean more into belief. I don't know if I would say that's what I was being taught. I would lean more towards that's what I was interpreting.
Sure.
I wouldn't I can't 100% say that's what I was being taught because I don't believe that's true. I think it was more in that's how I interpreted the message.
Yeah, I feel like that wasn't something somebody had to teach me. That was something that I expected from God.
Yeah, okay.
Right, like that. I went through that as well. It's like, well, wait a minute. I'm doing the math, and
Yeah.
I'm not getting the results.
Yeah.
But it's because they were my equations.
Yeah. Like 2 + 2 should equal 5. Why doesn't equal 5?
Right.
Like
Exactly.
we're not working together on the same problem.
Yep.
And at the same time, I was seeing other people get the things that I want. I was seeing guys that I was like, he's a jerk. Why is he getting married to that pretty girl? And I'm still single. And I would see that multiple times. And I'm like, well, this is not. Why'd that guy get a good job? He's an idiot. Like, like why am I not getting the things when I'm doing the stuff?
Sure.
This doesn't make sense to me. And so I was dealing with, I believe I'm being a good Christian, but I'm not seeing the blessings that Christ has promised me. And that was creating more frustration. And so I was starting to get back into the cycle of it.
Sure.
I was starting to repeat that cycle from being a kid of saying, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what's going on. And I became, and the easiest way to explain it is to be an animal in a trapped cage. You're like, this doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense to me.
It's just in the crazy cycle.
Yeah.
Over and over. So when did that change? When did that start changing for you?
That started changing for me, like I said, probably sometime around 2013, I think. 2013. So I would have been 33? How old am I? Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was sometime around when I was 30, 31, which was right around 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. I would say I reached a point where I really was getting frustrated with God. And I would have almost daily arguments of saying, why am I not being blessed? What's going on? And I kind of broke, like, I don't know how else to explain that. Like, I reached a point where I was just broken, and I was just like, I'm not even going to try anymore. And so I did. I stopped trying. I stopped being a commander and because I was also teaching at that time too.
Right.
So because again, I was trying to do the thing. I was a commander with the Royal Rangers, and I got to a point where I broke. And I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to fulfill this formula anymore because it's not working. It hasn't worked. I don't get it. I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm just going to try and study Christ and just wait for an answer, right? And so, because they say if you get into a cycle of something and it's not working, there's two things you should do. You either try going back to the beginning or you stop doing the cycle.
Right.
And so I stopped doing the cycle. And I was like, if he's going to bless me, he's going to bless me. If he's going to condemn me, whatever. Doesn't matter at this point. And so, which is dangerous.
But on the flip side, I kind of want to commend you on that because we kind of live in a world where it's like it would be frowned upon to say, well, wait a minute, you should be fulfilling these things, doing these things, but not if it's at the expense of me walking with God. Right? Like, even though they're good things, that doesn't mean that's what God was doing in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I do have to say, hold your commencement, because I'll have to say, I didn't do that on purpose. I just got to a point where I was tired of not seeing results, and I was frustrated, and so I was just like, I'm just going to stop trying, because I'm tired, and I'm out of energy, and I don't know what to do. So I just stopped trying. I stopped trying to be a good Christian. I was still going to church. I was still reading the Word, but I wasn't trying anymore, right? So so I stopped being a commander because I told the guy that was in charge. I was like, look, I feel like a hypocrite doing this. I can't be teaching these kids when I don't believe what I'm teaching.
Yeah.
You know. And he's like, well, we need people, so I'd like you to keep doing it. And I'm like,
Oh no.
and I'm like, which was true. They were already understaffed, and I was like, I can't, man. I can't. I'll go to 2 years. I'll go to the end of 2 years, and I can't do it after that. And he's like, well, I get it. So okay. And he's a really great guy because he's a guy named Ken, and he's amazing with youth ministries, and he connects with the boys, and he takes them out and he shows them how to start fires and stuff, right? So he's a really awesome guy. And so at that point, I really just tried to. I'd like to say that during that point in life, I was leaning into the message of be still and know that I am the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I tried to do. I tried to just not do anything and just focus on knowing who God is.
Right.
And why he is who he is. And how he is seen in the embodiment of Christ. You know. Which I shouldn't have done because now I have knowledge, and knowledge is dangerous.
Yeah, now you're responsible.
Now I'm responsible, right? I don't know things. And so I would, and that was the point whenever I rededicated myself to Christ, and that was the time when I said, okay, I'm going to put faith in you, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, because at that point I stopped. I had to actively not fulfill a formula. I had to actively stop myself from checking boxes and just trying to learn who Jesus is and who he was and who he will be, right? And so that's what I started focusing on, actually learning Scripture and learning Christ and learning things that God wanted to teach me. And so I'm not going to say it was easy, but I will say it was easier when I stopped trying to fulfill a checklist.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so then after that, you got to be getting pretty close to meeting Maria then.
I was mail order bride. That's not true, Maria. If you're listening, I'm sorry.
Of course she's listening.
Yeah,
Your wonderful wife is gonna listen.
She'll punch me later. It's fine.
You deserve it. It's fine.
I do. So I met. So at that time I was doing IT. I was helping a guy named Tad do IT consulting, and one of the businesses we did was my mother's dental practice, or where she does the office manager at a dental practice, right? And Maria was working there as a scheduler. And so, long story short, Mom said, hey, you should ask this girl out. She's sweet. And I'm like, she doesn't speak English. And she's like, yes, she does. I wouldn't have hired her otherwise. I'm like, that's fair. So I asked her out. We went and got fish at Sea Island. And she thought it was weird that I drove a Kia Rio and not a truck, which is kind of weird considering how big I am. I got great gas mileage, so.
I get it.
Yeah. And the insurance was super low. So yeah, we met, and we got married, and our marriage was kind of weird too, because at that time she wasn't a Christian,
right?
Either, right? She didn't become a Christian until I think we were engaged, but we weren't married yet, and she had accepted Christ. Because up until that point, she was a quote unquote diehard Catholic, right? And when I say diehard, I mean she had a picture of the Virgin of Guadalupe up there, but never went to church.
You said Guadalupe.
As opposed to
Guadalupe?
Guadalupe. No, it's Guadalupe.
You are from South Texas, sir.
Yes, I am. That's correct.
All right, continue.
Barbacoa and Big Red all the way. So yeah, she had her little shrine to Virgin de Guadalupe. And we started talking about we had already been talking about why Catholicism is weird and why it doesn't make sense. And we ended up we ended up getting engaged, and then at one point we were sitting there. I think we were eating breakfast, and she was like, how do I give my life to Christ? And I'm like, well, we can take care of that right now. And so I walked her through the sinner's prayer, and that was it. And so she became, and then at that point we had already started going to Camelot, and which was mind-boggling for her because she had never seen anything
Sure.
but the Mexican Catholic Church.
Right.
That's all she knew, and to go from that to a charismatic AOG church was like, what? What is this? And so yeah, and that's when she accepted Christ. And she's been working on that. Now she's still a baby Christian in some respects, but she is much farther along. And we've talked about this too. Like she knows that she is emotionally and mentally much stronger than she was when we first met. Like she recognizes the changes that she's gone through, and she understands that it's because of her understanding of Christ.
That's so beautiful.
Wow. Yeah. And it's kind of amazing because now that I look back on it, I can honestly say my purpose, and I've gone through Ed Cole's books on manhood, and I've gone through those different
all
studies,
Promise Keepers,
and one of the things, despite what anybody thinks of the Promise Keepers and what their message is, one thing that they say is that is absolutely true is that men need a purpose.
Yeah.
A man without a purpose will die emotionally and mentally if you don't have a purpose.
Absolutely.
Right? And so once I got to that point where we were married, I recognized that my purpose was Maria. And I started seeing like, okay, Lord, you have put me through all of that hell to get to this so I could save her. And now that I have my babies, right, I have my boy and my girl, and I know what we took them out of. I know the life they would have had.
Right.
And I understand now that you put me here for them. You didn't put me here for me.
Right.
You put me here for her and for them babies.
And your babies are adopted.
They're divas. Yeah,
they're wonderful.
They're adopted, yes.
I was like...
But they are divas.
Yes. They are full of personality, and I love them to death.
They are knuckleheads, but they are happy babies, and both of them were adopted out of Liz's mom. I think was a prostitute or something. Roy's mom was riddled with drugs and kicked out of like 4 different rehabs while we were fostering them. It was like within a year, she got kicked out of 4 different rehabs. Apparently not easy to do. So yeah, the life that they would have had is not the life that they have. And I am so grateful that God has used me and in turn used Maria for the babies and for the life that we have. We're not Rockefellers or anything. But we have a happy home, and we have, we don't always get along, but
right. There's definitely the ups and downs of relationships and marriage and being a parent and kids and all that.
And it's work. It's definitely work, but we are so blessed with where we're at and from where we came from. It is amazing to me of where we are and where we're at.
Y'all have a beautiful family. Yeah. Y'all really do. And
the French nose.
Yes, those deep Canadian features that are passed down.
I tell Maria that's why I'm bald, because God didn't want me to be too good looking.
Oh man. I think we're kind of coming near the end. I would like to take some more time talking about adoption and things like that with your kids. Maybe another time.
Sure.
Especially for those who are thinking, hey, what? Maybe I would want to adopt one day.
Do it. Adopt. It's so fulfilling. It will wrench your heart, but it is such a process that is such a fulfilling act.
Yeah.
Especially if you're someone that can't have kids. And if you go through Texas, there should be, if you go through the state, there should be no financial burden at all. We actually, this is not why we do it, but we do make money off of having them, but they cost a lot of money. So I don't know, balances out.
Maybe it evens out.
I haven't done the checks and balances, but
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't.
So yeah, another day we'll go into length on that. But as we kind of wrap up, one of the things we're looking at is, what's life at New Day kind of been for you and your family?
Life at New Day has been really good. Like I said, we hooked up whenever you came to the store with your gaggle of geeks to play Magic, of all things, and we connected there because me and Roy were over there playing Redemption.
Yep.
Which Roy was frustrating me, and then y'all came in, and I was like, I can't lose it in front of customers because Roy's irritating me. Because if anybody knows Roy is a character.
He's a character. We love you, Roy.
We love you, Roy. You're amazing, and you have such a heart for people and for God, but you're a knucklehead. And so we connected there, and that was another thing. So that was I spent about 6 months of prayer and meditating and saying and getting the message like, hey, you should go to New Day. You should start going to New Day and leave Camelot. And that was also another story. I don't know if you want to get into.
Yeah, we can do that. I think that's a longer story for another time.
Yeah. The roller coaster, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and then since we've gone over to New Day, I know my eyes have been opened to a lot of how the churches the macroverse of churches work. And I say it all the time that I hate you for opening my eyes to it.
I gave you the red pill. I'm sorry.
Thanks. I want to get plugged back in. And so I find that I have really been enriched in myself being a New Day. And it's a lot, and it's really because the sermons are really good. And the focus on the message is really good. But the showmanship of church has been taken out of the equation for me. Being at New Day has focused us up more on really what church should be, not just to promote New Day, but it really falls more in line with what I believe the Church of Acts was. And so it's I feel like it's a more of a community. There's also more accountability, and there's also more of a stripped down version of teaching, which is what I believe the Church of Acts was and what the church should be, and Maria has told me before that she has, in the last year, she's started to see a lot of differences, and she's also starting to understand that stuff, or starting to see the differences of how churches run and how they are not all the same. Like, because coming from Catholic to charismatic to pseudo Baptist.
Yeah. Yeah, we let's see, what's the line? The line is we are non-denominational with Baptist roots.
Yeah.
For everybody listening, I work for the Baptist Convention, so like I got to be completely transparent. Our church couldn't be any less culturally Baptist as anything on the planet.
Yeah, really not.
Yeah, we have like no tradition at all.
According to the Catholic Church, we're Catholics.
Yeah. I heard somebody say if I started to deconstruct from church, I would have the only thing I could deconstruct from is the gospel, because I think that's all we got.
That's all things left. Yeah. Sola scriptura with prominence.
Yeah.
Prominence. That's the key. You have to say with prominence, otherwise it's dicey.
That's right. So is there anything you want to kind of leave with folks as we wrap up? Any questions you might want to ask, or a part of your story you want to reemphasize?
I still don't understand divine simplicity.
Yeah, that's another discussion. That's a whole different podcast.
I don't know if I want to. Here's what I'll leave. Here's what I'll leave with the listeners. If you've made it this far, good job. Like and subscribe. I will say you get monetary compensation, but a pastor may not honor that.
We don't. No, Brandon will give you monetary compensation.
I ain't got money. I'll tell you this. No matter what your story is, like if you've listened this far, you've heard the roller coaster of my life. No matter what you think you've gone through, or what you think you're going through, or what you think you might go through, your life is a testimony to those around you, and you should not be afraid to let others know about it. Now, I say that, but I also say use wisdom in who you're letting know. But don't ever feel ashamed of what you're going through. And don't be afraid to confront it as needed.
Yeah.
Remember, God doesn't give us more than we can handle. He will allow us to confront the things that we need to confront as we need to confront them. He's not going to tell you to fix your whole life at once. Like I'm saying, Jesus worked on me piece by piece. He had to chip away piece by piece. And it's taken somewhere in the realm of 30 years. So understand that. Your testimony is your life. It's not a where I'm gonna be or where I was. It's who you are right now.
Yes.
That is your testimony. And don't be afraid to tell others about it, because God can use even you, no matter who you are. You are unique in the eyes of God, and He can use you right where you're at, not where you think you need to be.
Yes.
So that's what I'll say.
That's really good. I appreciate you sharing that, and I appreciate you sharing your life with us. I appreciate your friendship.
Part 2 next time.
yeah. For everybody who can handle it, we'll have another one and maybe talk about some other topics. But thank you, Brandon, for being a part of this and a part of our life. And we thank you, everybody else, for listening and tuning in. We hope you have a rich and blessed week. God bless.
Thanks for listening to The Other Side of Yesterday. If today's story inspired you, share it with somebody who needs a little hope. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of redemption, faith, and transformation. Remember, we all have a past. Through Jesus, we have a future.